Good afternoon guys, welcome back to another video. First of all, sorry if there's any wind noise, it's a pretty crappy weather-wise day. But today we're going to be installing some new bump stops into the rear. You guys know I put the 300 kilo constant load rear leafs in. They're great and they still flex pretty well, which is perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. But I'm still having the issue of the tires binding up under the rear wheel arches. So as you can see, I've flexed the car up a little bit at the moment just to try and show you that. I can't get the tire all the way up to touch the wheel arch properly, but you get the gist of how it's going down. So with the car flexed up like this, up under the wheel arch, see that silver patch right there? That is all the paint rubbed off the wheel arch because the tire goes all the way up and touches and rubs it off. So with the tire sitting where it is, it's not quite hitting the wheel arch just yet, but the bump stop still has a fair bit of distance to travel before it hits the chassis just there. So what I have worked out is once the tire is just shy of that wheel arch, I need roughly 120 mils of just a solid bump stop. I don't really care about the paint rubbing off as such, and you know, it's kind of cool having a tuck all the way up like that. But my problem is that every single time I go out on the tracks, because I'm not locked yet, the tire seems to tuck so high up, it touches the guard, it binds up, which stops the wheel from spinning pretty much, and then I just can't complete the track because I don't have any traction going down to the ground. Pretty much I flex out and just don't move. I just sit there and just click. So that's not ideal. I want to be able to do the tracks easily. And I really feel like the binding up of the rear is quite holding me back. So fingers crossed, by installing some new bump stops, I'll at least get a little bit more traction and I can do a little bit more before I end up going with a locker. So these are the bump stops we've gone with. So they're from 47 Fabrication. Hit him up on Instagram, great bloke, really helpful. This is not sponsored by the way, but I do want to give him a bit of a shout out because he's the only bloke that I can find that actually does this kind of thing. So this is something he makes himself. Yeah, obviously he just makes up a little bracket that holds the U-bolts. You get a nut and bolt and a bump stop with it. So these are a total of 180 mil overall, and they compress down to 110, I think he said, at full compression. So these should fit and compress perfectly. I might have to lift the tray a tiny bit if I still completely compress it, but that's not a huge issue. I'd rather go 10 mil than have to go like 80 mil with every other bump stop. This is how it assembles. So it basically just bolts through the bottom. I built it so that the bolt head is on the bottom. So inside there, you can't really see it, but there's the nut. And the way to construct these is pretty simple. You just basically plonk it on there and shove a bolt through. Righto, so once you're under the car's still on the ground, first step is to get rid of the shock. Take that off so that we don't have that drop down when we remove the U-bolts. Once you've got that removed, we're going to swap from a 17 mil for the shock to a 19 mil for the U-bolts and remove them slowly. Righto, now that I have taken one of the U-bolts off, I've got the other one just hanging over here, just left it quite loose on this bottom plate, and it's just chilling over the side. Righto, 2 bump stops done, let's install them. So now that you got the base plate on nice and loose, just center the bracket up with your diff and everything, and your drivetrain, just make sure it's nice and centered. And then you just want to tighten up your bolts. Make sure you do it evenly too. You don't want to have it all wonky. Right, once you got all that evenly tightened up, we're going to put the shock back on there. So just compress it up a bit, slip it on. Swap it back to the 17 and tighten her up. Alright, now the one's on, we're going to get onto the second one, but before we do, I just wanted to quickly show you something. So this is my old bump stop, right? These 2 spots here are obviously the places that the U-bolts go to wedge it all down and sandwich it all together. And then this has got the same setup. If you line mine up on an RG Colorado, if I line up where the spring should sit, it's quite drastically shorter. So that means that when I just put those U-bolts on just then, instead of them being, like if you're looking at it from the side, instead of them being perfectly plumb, perfectly parallel with each other, they kind of go like that. So the top side, because that's a shorter distance between the 2 U's here, it brings the top in, but the base is obviously still the same. So I'm really hoping that it's not going to try and bend those U-bolts around my diff housing. I don't know if there's any dramas with that. I think it should be okay. And it still fit, still went on and everything. But yeah, obviously it's just slightly different. Fingers crossed that's okay, but maybe it's not the same on every other car. On his website it does say that these are made to suit Hilux, D-Max and Colorado. So maybe the Hilux diff is, you know, not as chunky, I guess. It's a lot smaller. So maybe that's why they're more suited to suit the Hilux, but I don't know. They should be okay. Alright, well, I can't get that washer off the shock for some reason, and I can't get the shock off, so let's just go straight underneath and it'll just have to come down, that's all. And that's it. That's the install complete. Hey, look at that. Perfect. Prime example of what I wanted it to do. I've still got a gap up under there, and then when I jump underneath, you can see that the bump stop is compressed. Perfect. So that's sitting at roughly, when it's compressed, is about 110 mil, which is pretty much what I wanted, and that gives me a good gap up between there. So obviously it's not completely compressed, as you know, because before it wasn't completely compressed, but that's a lot better. That's definitely doing what I intended it to do. Not binding up on the tray anymore, still flexes out and everything, and yeah, that should help it a ton. Righto, now that it's all in, we've given it a quick flex test. Well, it's about time we go and test it properly. So there's one road up in the Watagans that I know I always get stuck on because I flex out and bind up on the rear wheels. We're going with a mate, but one car. We're going to Creek Road up in the Watagans. If you don't know what that is, then you should go check it out. If you do know what that is, then wish me luck. But let's get out there before the sun goes down and see how we go.
20 minutes later.
Righto, well, this is Creek Road. For the users that don't know, if you haven't come out to the Watagans, then you definitely need to check it out. That's just the easy little bit down, but up further it's a little bit more treacherous. But down here is where we're going to go. This is the section that I get stuck. Now, as you can see, it's quite muddy, so fingers crossed I get the grip, because the main issue before I was having is that I would flex out and not be able to get up. But now that it's wet, even if I don't flex out, that could still be an issue. I'm going to drop tire pressures to, you know, try and help myself out and get up. But this is Creek Road. So we're parked just over there, down the bottom over there. You come around here, you've got one step there, which you can't really see, it doesn't look too big. Then you've got this bigger step here, which, you know, that's quite big, that's, you know, thigh height. And then you sort of follow the track up, which, as you can see, it's very muddy at the moment. Has been raining for about the last week, so we'll see how we go. You climb up here. Oh geez, that's really slippery. And then there's only a little lift out. That's always been pretty easy to get out of. I don't really get stuck on that. But all this section here is where I get caught on, because it's just, you know, hole there, it's just wombat holes basically. And they're either side, they're in the wrong spots, and I kept flexing out. So let's give this a go, see if we can get up with it even being wet like this. I've got the Max Tracks in the car if you don't, you know, it's a bit slippery still and we need a bit more grip. Is this a bad idea? Oh geez, that might have been. Let's have a go, let's have a crack. This is the bottom of the rut I was talking about. So you've got one step here, God, it looks like nothing on camera. You've got a step here, and then you've got that step there, which, you know, is a bit undercut, and about, yeah, if I stand in the corner right there, that's about my hip to the top of the rock step. So, you know, it's decent, but let's have a crack. Let's drop some pressures in the tyres, take it down to probably 18 or something, and really give us our best fighting chance. You're up, that one. There you go. It's different now. It's anchoring now. So you just gotta bounce it really. You alright? I'll help you a bit.
I reckon roll back a little bit more.
It just goes into the hole.
Yeah, a little bit more. Righto.
There's nothing really like Radio. Well, we're all finished up now. I've just aired up and we've completed that track. As you've seen, we met a couple of boys in a 76 that was chopped with a canopy and stuff, and then just a single cab 79. I would say I showed them up, but I kind of didn't. It took me a little bit to get up, and it took them just as much, except, well, actually the 76, he done a second try, bounced straight up and then basically just planted his foot. He didn't back off. So I was a bit worried he was going to do a lot of panel damage. But I'm happy with how the bump stops turned out. Definitely needs to be a rear locker still in it, and maybe give it another crack in the dry. The wet just wasn't having it with the tyres. I was down at about 19 PSI, and obviously the mud and all that sort of gunk and everything was just slipping way too much on the rocks. So it took me a couple of goes with, yeah, low PSI and then the bump stops, but they still did help. I got out and checked it actually halfway up one of them because I was stuck, but the wheel was tucked all the way up and still wasn't hitting the guard. The bump stop was completely compressed, so obviously it wasn't going to raise any higher. And yeah, then my only issue was that grip factor. So hopefully it is still just a locker, but hopefully a lot more tracks I can, you know, I'll actually be able to do a bit better. Just need a bit of momentum to bounce myself over things. So overall happy with them. If you guys are running IFS utes and stuff just like I am, and you've got a bit of a flexy rear end and are having that tucking issue, definitely hit up 47 Fabrication on Instagram. He's got his little website on there. I'll put it on the screen anyway. And really simple install too. Like if I wasn't filming and all that sort of stuff, I reckon I would have had him in by half an hour, and that's probably including getting the tools out. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. If you're keen with all the four-wheel driving content, let me know down below, and I have got a few more mods at home ready to go on this. I think the next up will be the diff breathers if something doesn't come in that's more important before that. So that's a bit of a surprise. I won't tell you about that just yet. But all in all, good day, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. Leave a comment if you got any questions or anything for me, and make sure you subscribe to see a bit more content. All right guys, catch you in the next one. Bye.